All right, yes, indeed. Welcome back. So that is where we're starting off today. We've got Mr. Festus Okoye, who is the National Commissioner and Chairman of Information and Voter Education Committee of INEC. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Well, what we've seen there and in different parts of the country, well, yes, clearly raising a lot of concerns. And then the commission membership, they met with the president, and he did assure them. But if you could just give us a background of how all of those attacks, or the potential of the magnitude of the scare that we face if those attacks continue.
Well, you know that the Independent National Electoral Commission has local government offices in the 774 local government areas of the Federation, and we have electoral officers in these offices and full complement of staff in these offices. We also have offices in the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. And it is from these local government offices that we really launch our operations. For instance, during the expansion of voter access to polling units, it was from these offices that the electoral officers, assistant electoral officers, and other staff of the commission carried out that particular exercise. It was from there that they did all the georeferencing in relation to these polling units. It was from there that they relocated polling units that are in places that are not appropriate. And it was also from there that they relocated the voting points and voting point settlements that have been converted into new polling units to appropriate locations. So our local government offices are very critical to the continuity of electoral process. And the moment we lose our local government offices, the moment our local government offices are vandalized, the moment our local government offices are attacked, it more or less cripples our operations, especially at the local government levels, because the electoral officers are more or less like the managing directors of elections. And if you don't have managing directors of elections, there is no way you can proceed with electoral activities. So that is really a critical issue. For instance, in Anambra State, for instance, during the attack, we lost a total of 376 electric generating sets that were mopped up from the different electoral wards. We also lost 50% of all the materials, the non-sensitive materials, already delivered to these to Anambra State for the governorship election slated for the 6th of November 2021. We also lost 7 utility vehicles, and then we also lost our collation center. So the moment you have these attacks, especially at the local government levels and at the state level, more or less, what we are trying to do is to cripple and compromise the capacity and ability of the commission to carry out electoral activities, and that also affects our ability to also carry out the dictates of our mandate. So it's quite a very serious matter.
But at the moment, given, the assurances you have, what about the states? Are they in any way wading in? Perhaps when the time comes, how they can then ensure that they provide certain facilities for those functions to happen? Is that happening?
Well, you know that, for instance, some of our local government offices, the land where some of our local government offices are located, we are provided by the host communities. And sometimes 80% of those who work in our local government offices are people drawn from the states contiguous, or from the local governments and states contiguous to those offices. So in some of the places where we had the NSAS attack, for instance, in Nnewi North local government area of Anambra State, and then in places like Ede, I think Ede North, and some other places in Osun State, the local communities have volunteered to rebuild some of these offices. And we are also expecting that the various state governments, the various stakeholders, traditional rulers, religious leaders, we see some of these offices as part of the national electoral infrastructure in their various communities, and then take ownership and protect some of these offices. But at a different level, we are also going to weigh in with the state governments to make sure that some of the facilities we use as collation centers and some of the facilities we use as staging pools depots for our elections are properly renovated and properly catered for, so that when we perform our electoral activities, we will not be providing generating cells, we will not be another water board providing water in the various schools and so on and so forth. So we are going to liaise with and consult with the critical stakeholders, the state governments, traditional rulers, religious leaders, the various political parties, civil society groups and organizations in terms of protecting our assets, and also in terms of engaging them more robustly for the purposes of making sure that nothing happens to our electoral process.
Well, Mr. Okoye, a question that comes to my mind straight away is that this is one of those several attacks on all kinds of infrastructure all over the country, and that's something that's always played on my mind. Don't we always see these things coming? Was there any prior information that you may or may not be aware of, maybe to security agencies or even to your office or to the office of the chairman of INEC, that such a thing could happen? Did we see this coming?
Well, for instance, in relation to the attacks during the NSAS protests, you know how it started, you know how spontaneous some of these attacks were, and also you also know how some of the facilities were targeted. For instance, in our office in Edo State, when some of the NSAS protesters went to our office in Edo State, after the only thing they did was that they only removed the flag and then told our security officers that they were not going to touch the office because they are happy with what the Commission did in conducting free, fair, and credible elections in Edo State. So they spared the office. They refused to attack the office. But going forward, we have had a meeting with all our resident electoral commissioners in terms of what we can do as a commission proactively and administratively and within our own competence to protect some of our critical national assets and also protect some of the equipment we use during the election. So we have taken proactive measures. But in terms of the security agencies, we have also had meeting with the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security in terms of what they know, in terms of the type of advice and information they can give us for us to act much more professionally and more appropriately in protecting some of our assets. And we have also liaised with them and called for more and better coordination among the security agencies in terms of sharing information and also in terms of making information available to the Commission anytime they are in possession of any information that will be critical in terms of protecting our infrastructure and other assets and equipment.
Well, do you see any way in which conducting our elections virtually would help to save some resources in that regard? Because, I mean, all those things that have been destroyed would have to be replaced if we're to have, elections the way we ought to have them. Do you see online activities in terms of our electoral process solving that kind of problem?
Well, this commission is very creative. This commission is very innovative, and this commission has gone to a large extent in deepening the use of technology in the electoral process. For instance, that before this present commission, political parties submit the list and particulars of their candidates physically, and on the day of submission, sometimes there's a fight at the premises of the commission. But now we have deepened the use of technology by creating a political parties nomination portal. So political parties now submit the list and particulars of their candidates electronically using our portal. So they just upload the list and particulars of the candidates. And so the issue of human interface is completely reduced. The same thing with civil society groups and organizations, and the same thing with the media. They apply for accreditation electronically, and we do business with them electronically using our unique portal that we created for this particular purpose. You also know that we also created an INEC result viewing portal through which we upload the results from the polling units into a central portal where registered voters and other Nigerians and other interested parties can view these results. So we have deepened to a large extent the use of technology in the electoral process. And one of the other things we intend to do relating to the continuous voters registration is to also create an online registration portal where eligible registrants who do not suffer any legal liability or disability can register online and then decongest the registration centers. But going forward, this commission is determined to improve on its use of technology in the electoral process. We have gone very far in terms of our resolve to introduce electronic voting machines in the electoral process, but the use of people voting online or using the internet to vote and so on is a project that the commission is working on, and at the appropriate time the commission will unveil what it is doing. But the immediate task we have now, our immediate responsibility and our immediate resolve is to introduce the use of electronic voting machines in the electoral process, and we are confident that in the next few months or so, the National Assembly and the Presidency will finish work on the electoral legal framework to give us the electoral muzzle and the window to deepen the use of technology in the electoral process in terms of introducing some of the new innovations that we have lined up.
Well, that suggests that those politicians will no longer rent crowd. I mean, all their supporters will not come to INEC office anymore and say, well, these are my people who said I should buy this form and I'm submitting them because of them. So when is this kicking off, for instance? Is it before Anambra elections or afterwards?
No. This particular procedure has been in place, and that is why you do not see the type of huge demonstrations that used to take place at the offices of the Independent National Electoral Commission. We no longer see huge bags of people carrying their nomination forms to the premises of the Electoral Management Body. We no longer see state chapters of political parties coming to submit a different list from the one that is submitted by the national office of the political party. So what happens is that the moment political parties finish with their party primary elections, we give an access code to the national chairman and the national secretary of the political parties that conducted valid party primaries. And they use this access code to upload the list and particulars of the candidates that have emerged from validly conducted party primaries to the commission. And then at the end of the day, we use our back end to print these forms, set out the list of candidates, and then proceed with the other activities lined up in the Electoral Act in relation to candidates' nomination. So we are happy with the advances we have made in terms of the use of technology, and we no longer see huge fights and huge debates and huge altercations and disputations at the premises of the Commission.
That's good to know. But, you know, when the last general election was initially postponed after when it was held much later, the chairman of INEC did say that we needed to have a conversation about election management in this country. So is that happening? Because I know that the commission did pay a visit to the president. Was that matter broached? And do you think that if we had started taking steps, would all of these attacks on offices be a huge concern?
Well, I think that debate is really ongoing. With the commission was part of the technical committee that worked on the new electoral act, because what the National Assembly intends to do is to repeal the existing electoral act and enact an electoral act 2021, so that all the various amendments that have been made previously will be brought into one single document, so that we won't have the challenge of looking for different and disparate pieces of legislation to piece them together to know what is the existing legal framework as of today. So I believe that the conversation relating to the fate of our elections, the fate of our democracy, and also the fate of the management of elections is ongoing. But we can deepen it. All the political parties have a role to play in relation to this. Civil society groups and organizations have a role to play. The various religious groups and religious organizations and sociocultural groups have a role to play. For instance, in relation to the expansion of voter access to polling units. The commission consulted and consulted widely. We consulted with all the registered political parties. We consulted with all the civil society groups and organizations. We consulted with the media. We consulted with socio-cultural groups and organizations. We consulted with the National Economic Council, headed by the Vice President. We made briefing to the Federal Executive Council. And we went to a large extent in consulting the various communities through stakeholder engagements. So we need more of some of these engagements. We need more of some of these consultations. We need to break some of these barriers that militate against the conduct of free, fair, and transparent elections. And we want to also see the various communities protecting and guarding the facilities of the commission and seeing these facilities as part of the national electoral infrastructure that ought to be protected by all means, because they ensure electoral continuity. And without an electoral management body, without political parties, there cannot be any election and there cannot be democracy. So we need to deepen these engagements, and that is one of the issues we raised with the president in terms of finding ways and means of deepening stakeholder engagement, especially around the elections and the electoral process and democracy.
You said that's an ongoing conversation, Mr. Okoye, but there's something that we started to talk about, and I think would need a little more explanation in it. And that's talking about the online registration for people. The challenge on my mind is, of course, we know that urban Nigeria, major cities it will be easier for them to have internet penetration and all of that. But how about the hinterlands? How about the rural communities and all of that? How do the young people in those communities who are maybe not as tech savvy as many people are in urban Nigeria and where internet penetration may not be that strong? What's the thinking along that line?
Well, this commission recognizes and appreciates that particular fact. And we have decided to adopt a duality. One, for those who are not internet savvy, for those who do not have internet penetration, for those who live in the hinterlands, as you pointed out, those people will go to either our INEC state offices or the local government offices or to the registration centers, as we may cluster them, to go and register. So those ones will begin their registration and end their registration at the various registration centers, either at the state level, at the local government level, or at the clusters of the registration areas, as the commission may decide. Now, for those who are internet savvy, what we really want to do is to make sure that we decongest the various registration centers, taking into consideration the present circumstances of the country and the world in terms of the pandemic. We do not want too many crowds. We don't want crowds at the various registration centers, and that's why we have created this online portal. And this online portal will serve 6 purposes. One, it will serve new registrants who want to register newly, those who have attained the age of 18 and those who have never registered before. Secondly, those who want to transfer their centers from one place to the other, it will also serve them. Those who want to also update their details in terms of the fact that they have moved from one place to the other, their addresses have changed, and so on and so forth. They will have an opportunity of doing that. Those who want to also locate new registration centers or new polling units, we have an opportunity of doing that. Those who want to report incidents like the loss of their PVC or their PVCs have been defaced and so on, they will also have an opportunity of doing that. And then it will also contain a PVC locator in terms of where you can go to locate where your PVC is at the moment. So these are the 6 things that the online portal will do. But for fresh registration, you can start your registration online and then go to any of the registration centers to go and complete your biometrics and do your facials. So we want to discongest the registration centers, but those who do not have access to the internet and who do not have access to modern gadgets can begin their registration at the registration center and complete their registration at the registration center. So nobody will be denied the benefit of registration.
In other words, online is just one part. You still have to go to the INEC registration center to complete.
Yes. What we have done is to deepen the use of technology and also conform to the dictates of the law. Section 10 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended says that any new registrant, anybody who wants to register for purposes of the voters registration must appear physically before the registration officer at the registration center. So what we have done is to use a new innovation and also conform to the law. So you start your registration and then you start your registration online and then complete your registration at the registration center. This allows us to remain within the ambit and compass ambit of the law without falling foul of the law. So we know what we are doing. We are being very creative and innovative in terms of making sure that we look forward and then also conform to the law.
Okay, well, perhaps that's a suggestion that maybe the law needs some tinkering. Add to that, if you're going to respond to that, will the national identity number be a prerequisite for new registrants?
Well, you see, the Independent National Electoral Commission is the only commission, the only agency, the only organ that is vested with the power of registering new voters, with the power of updating the voters registration and also revising the voters register for purposes of elections, for the purposes of any election. It is only the Independent National Electoral Commission that compiles the voters register, and it is the voters register compiled by the commission that even the state's independent electoral commissions use for the purposes of election. Now our power to register voters is derived from the Constitution. The requirements for voters registration is also in the Constitution and in the law. The moment you have attained the age of 18 and you're a Nigerian citizen and you reside in any of the places identified in the Constitution, you can register as a voter. Then Section 9 and Section 10 of the Electoral Act have also set out what you need to show a registration officer when you go to register. It says that you can present a birth certificate or a baptismal certificate or a driver's license or your international passport or your national identity card. Any of these ones will suffice. So the issue of a NIM is optional. It is only one of those requirements. So it is not going to be a prerequisite or a mandatory document for purposes of voters registration. So my answer is no, it's not going to be a prerequisite. It's just optional. It's one of the documents that the registration officer may demand for. But if you have your birth certificate or your baptismal certificate or your driver's license that shows that you're a Nigerian, you have attained the age of 18 and you reside in the area where you want to register, the registration officer is under a constitutional and legal obligation to register you.
Wait, doesn't INEC consider all of those comments by several government agencies who are leaning more to having NIN because they think that at least it's not that easy to forge that document, so that you know that, yes, if you've got your NIN, then, you know, it's almost certain that, okay, this has been checked and it's valid for a Nigerian, because there are many who say that you have lots of foreigners who are registering saying that they are Nigerians.
Well, the truth of the matter is that this particular commission and indeed previous commissions are creations of the Constitution and the law. What we do is to implement the intendment of the Constitution and the intendment of the law. We cannot, because a different organ or a different agency has said something, go and breach the law or violate the law with impunity on grounds that we want to be politically correct or be politically relevant or legally relevant. We will definitely not do that. We realize and recognize the imperative and the unique nature of the NIN registration and why it is being required. But the law has not mandated us as a commission to make it mandatory. And since the law has not asked us to make it mandatory, and since the law has set out in very clear details, both constitutionally and in the Electoral Act, what we should require from a voter for the purposes of voters registration, we are going to remain within the ambit of the law. We are not going to go outside the law. So if the lawmakers, this commission does not have the the power of legislation. We are not part of the lawmakers. If tomorrow the Constitution is amended and the Electoral Act is amended and it's made mandatory for purposes of voters registration, definitely we will comply. But as of today, in terms of the state of the law, in terms of where we are with the law, we will not make it mandatory because the law has not asked us to make it mandatory.
Well, Mr. Okoye, one other thing that has been a concern is that of trust in the process. You know that the number of voters over the years since 1999 have increasingly decreased. People have, the voter apathy has been on the rise with lower turnout of voters from time to time. It begs the question of trust in the process because many are perhaps not satisfied with the way things are, especially with the people that are elected into office, or so it seems. So what's INEC doing or can do to entrench trust in the process so more people can come out to vote the right people who will give them the kind of governance that they want?
Well, you see, the issue of voter access to the polling units, the issue of a decreasing number of persons we see coming out to come and vote requires a multi-stakeholder attack and approach. Now, at the level of the commission, what we have done, one of the things we have done is the expansion of voter access to the polling units. As you know, as of today, we have a total of 119,973 polling units all over the country. And these polling units were created in 1996, 25 years ago. And as of today, and as at the time those polling units were created, we had a total registered voter population of 50 million. As of today, we have a total registered voter population of 84 million. And yet, the polling units still remain static. So what this commission has done is to break that particular 25-year-old jinx by creating additional polling units or converting the existing voting points and voting point settlements into full-fledged polling units and relocating them. I went to one of the polling units. The mother polling unit and the place where we relocated one is around 11 kilometers. So people trek 11 kilometers to a polling unit to come and cast their vote on election day. So what we have done is to decongest the polling units, take additional polling units to the various communities that are not served or underserved. And we believe that when polling units are closer to the people, persons with disability will find it easy to vote. Elderly people will find it easy to approach the polling units. Pregnant women, nursing mothers, and so on and so forth, we find it very, very easy to vote. And we believe that by so doing, we can increase voter access to the polling units. We also believe that with this new portal we are introducing, this online registration portal, most of our young people who are internet savvy will seize the opportunity to register. So we believe that all these innovations we are introducing will create a sense of trust in the electoral process and enable more people to approach the polling units and vote. But ultimately, and by and by, performance of governments in power also affects the perception of people relating to what they go to do at the polling units, whether it is worthwhile to go and vote or whether it's not worthwhile to go and vote. The environment around the polling units on election day also affects voter turnout. If people believe that there will be so much confusion, there will be violence at the polling units if they go to vote, definitely they may likely stay away. So if you engage in voter suppression on election day, definitely there's no way you can have large voter turnout. So I think that we have to continue this conversation relating to what we can do to create that level of trust that will enable our people to see voting and voting process as an ordinary civic responsibility, and for us to also find ways and means of increasing voter turnout in the electoral process. But with what we have done on our own part, we believe that we have done enough, and we have done, and that we are looking ahead and planning ahead and being creative and innovative in terms of the electoral process. And we are confident that voter turnout will definitely increase. But all the other agencies and organs and parties involved should also do their own. The political parties have a great role to play in terms of voter mobilization. The various governments have have a great role to play in terms of satisfying the yearnings of the people, so that people will look forward to going to the polling units on election day. So there's a lot of work to be done. But this commission, on our own part, we are doing the best we can in order to ameliorate this particular process.
Now, in terms of those managing the electoral process, the board of INEC, for instance, we understand that out of 12, there are just about 6 that are left. And if something is not done, that's going to be a huge challenge. In fact, isn't it 5 of them that left with the chairman before he was reconfirmed, and then those other persons were not replaced? So is this a huge concern for INEC? Because many think, look, to the extent that we understand you are even supervising the Northwest.
I supervise the Northwest zone, comprising Kebbi, Sokoto, Zamfara, Kano, Jigawa, Katsina, and Kano. This is because, as at present, we don't have any national commissioner from the Northwest. One of the national commissioners completed her tenure, while another one resigned on personal grounds. And so I supervise the Northwest as at present. Yes, we don't have the full complement of national commissioners, but there was a time that the commission ran for almost over 1 year with the same number of national commissioners. Our business and our concern is to make sure that electoral activities continue. It is within the constitutional and legal province of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to make his nomination. And it is also within the competence of the National Assembly to do the confirmation. So as far as we are concerned, when we receive new national commissioners, we welcome them with open arms. But as at now, the process of nominating national commissioners, the process of their confirmation is not within our competence, and we have absolutely nothing to do with that.
Well, yes, we understand that, but you know, it's such that if those things are not done, it will affect the way the job is done, because you can only do as much. In fact, we understand that 6 months to the 2023 general elections, about 90% of the REC's tenure would have elapsed. And so if nothing is done, who are those going to supervise those elections? Isn't that a concern?
Well, you see, the same in relation to the resident electoral commissioners, the same thing happened the last time before they were appointed. Now, some of the resident electoral commissioners are going to complete the full cycle of their tenure in terms of having served for 2 terms. So they are not eligible for reappointment. But there are some of them that are also eligible for reappointment, depending on the disposition of the appointing authorities. So we are looking towards that particular process. But you know, the Independent National Electoral Commission runs differently. Most of our processes are conducted at the base level by electoral officers and the assistant electoral officers at all the 774 local government areas. And then at the state level, we also have administrative secretaries who are top bureaucrats, who are top administrative officers who run these processes. And then at the state level, at the national level, we also have different clusters of directors, deputy directors, assistant directors that pilot the affairs of the commission. So at each point in time, the processes and procedures of the commission continues to run. What we do not have are just the full complement of the policy makers who make policy in terms of how the commission will go. But as I say, yes, there's more work on the shoulders of national commissioners now, because some of the national commissioners supervise 2 or 3 departments, and then some supervise 6 states rather than the 3 states that we normally supervise when we have the full complement of national commissioners. But we keep on marching on, we keep on trudging on. When new national commissioners are appointed, we will receive them. But in the absence of new national commissioners, we have the courage and we have the determination to proceed, pending the time we have their full complements.
So does that suggest then that until that is done, your strategy your plan of action may just be affected if those people are not there to understand your plan, as opposed to them coming up at the last minute, assuming that happens in that way?
Well, you see, when a new national commissioner comes in, or when a resident electoral commissioner comes in, they have to get briefing from the administrative secretaries at the state level. And then when new national commissioners come in, they also get briefing from the directors and other clusters of officers at the national level. So a new national commissioner who is determined, who is courageous, who wants to learn, can quickly settle down within a period of 3 months to 6 months, and then the person will fully integrate himself or herself into the processes and procedures of the commission. But what we are doing as at present is to work ahead, to think ahead and plan ahead, and also develop long-term strategies that enables us to plan for the 2023 elections ahead of time. For instance, if you noticed, for the Anambra governorship election that will take place on the 6th day of November 2021, this commission had already delivered over 50% of the non-sensitive materials required for the conduct of that election. Unfortunately, those non-sensitive materials were burnt during the challenge we had in the state office in Anambra. So we are working assiduously to make sure that at least a year before the 2023 elections, we have all our processes and all our procedures in place, and then things will just fall in place. So we are learning from the mistakes of the past, we are learning from the challenges of the past, and we're also trying to make sure that we have things under control so that the Nigerian people will not have any cause whatsoever to regret the fact that we are the ones who are planning and running this particular election. And moreover, the president has clearly informed the chairman and the national commissioners that whatever we need for the conduct of the elections will be provided. So the ball is in our court now to make sure that we remain focused, we remain courageous, and that we remain positive in terms of our engagement with the electoral process, in terms of our logistics, and in terms of our preparations, and also in terms of everything we do going forward relating to the coming governorship, off-season governorship elections, and the 2023 general elections, and some of the by-elections that we have coming up. So we will keep on trudging on. We have the courage, we have the determination, and there's also the zeal and the creativity and innovative spirit in the commission to move ahead.
Well, we hope that the National Assembly and other agencies are also learning, because as we speak, many are still waiting on the Electoral Act such that people can plan and prepare. But about you saying the president says whatever you need, let them know. Does that then mean it's not out of place for the commission to remind the presidency or the executive that, well, national commissioners, recs, 6 months at a time will be off, so what is the plan so that everybody can be on the same page?
Let me just put it this way, that in terms of the new electoral legal framework, I was part of the technical committee that worked on the new electoral framework. The chairman of the commission and national commissioners and some of our directors were part of it. And I can say that for the first time, I saw members of the National Assembly, both from the Senate and the House of Representatives, working morning, afternoon, and night, even till daybreak, on that new electoral legal framework. And we have new creative and far-reaching innovations in that particular electoral legal framework. And we hope and pray that the National Assembly will expedite action on it, because far-reaching recommendations have been made in that particular electoral act. And so we are positive that they will attend to it expeditiously. In terms of the second leg of the issues you raised, I will try and run it with the chairman and see whether it's within our remit and within our competence to go and remind the president relating to the performance of his constitutional duties, and go and remind the National Assembly that they need to expedite action. So I will run it with the chairman and see whether we can do that.
Well, I don't think it will be out of place, because after all, sometimes even as an employee, you can do a memo to your boss and say, boss, please don't forget my salary increase. But let me quickly tell you, there's something that you are aware of, and that's the volume of people who vote 60-70% of them are young people. And as much as possible, many are clamoring, when are we going to transcend, so to speak, the electoral process, the leadership to the younger folks? And the major impediment that many look at, for the young people is that of financial power. The cost of getting into politics is quite a lot. Is there anything in the laws or anything in the processes of INEC that can encourage young people and at least maybe reduce make the electoral process, getting into the electoral process, more friendly for the younger people who may not have that kind of financial power?
Look, this particular commission is a very, very youth-friendly commission, and we have done a lot to encourage the young people to register. In fact, this creation of this online registration portal was one of the ways of responding to the yearnings of the young people who are internet savvy. So I believe that the majority of the people who are going to register using the online portal will be young people. And then there are also groups and organizations that have reduced or worked with the National Assembly to break the age barrier in terms of running for different offices. So there are so many variables to this particular challenge, but the cost of running elections sometimes can be very, very prohibitive in terms of, Nigeria is a very huge country. There are some senatorial districts that encompass over 14 local governments, and traversing these 14 local governments, traversing all the registration areas, and also traversing most of our communities is not a child's play. But I think that we will get there. But the commission keeps on working to make sure that some of the impediments on the way of young people in terms of their political participation is removed. But ultimately, the task of reducing the cost of governance, the task of reducing the cost of campaigns, the cost of nominations, and so on and so forth, resides with the various political parties and also resides with the National Assembly, which is the lawmaking organ. But on our own part, we will try as much as possible administratively and within the compass of the law and our own competence to remove all the bottlenecks that stands in the way of young people and other vulnerable groups from participating fully in the electoral process.
All right, then, Mr. Festus Okoye, National Chairman, National Commissioner, and Chairman, the Information and Voter Education Committee of INEC. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much.